So guys, I'm going to be doing this video on 2024 election. A lot of you guys have asked for it, so here it goes. So it's been a wild ride. Joe Biden's out of the race. Now, of course, they're going to say that's because he did the right thing for the country. He's a patriot. We all know that's bullshit. He had a secret meeting, not a secret meeting, but a meeting with the top brass in the Democratic Party that asked him to step down. Now, I just did like a quick glance and I just did a rough estimate, and looked to me like Joe Biden got about $150 billion, $150 million more for his campaign contributions than Trump did from donors in 2020. So Biden had a lot more money. This time around, when I look at the donors, I believe that Trump is actually up a little bit. Trump is actually getting a little bit more. So if you look at that and you look at the real reasons why he pulled out of the race, it has everything to do with the fact that the donors were going to withhold funding if Joe Biden was going to run. And the Democrats need that money, and money talks in politics, and that's why he ultimately stepped down. So guys, here's the thing. Ultimately, in my opinion, neither of these political parties' ideal for the country is really good for us. The good things, in my opinion, on the right are lower taxes, stronger immigration, probably cheaper prices at the pump. I do think that Trump would be a better negotiator with certain, authoritarian leaders like Xi and Putin than Kamala would. So better for foreign policy. I think that he would be probably better for the stock market and definitely better for crypto. Definitely Trump is going to be better for crypto and security. The Democrats, even though Harris is their presumptive nominee, we don't know that that's absolutely for certain. They're better for the environment. They're better about abortion, They're probably better for student loans, students that are trying to get student loan relief. Better for people that don't have a lot of money, people that need certain, benefits, entitlements, whatever you want to call them, like Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act, which does help a lot of people, especially with pre-existing conditions. If you do have pre-existing conditions and you go to get a policy from a private insurance carrier, it's going to cost you a lot more. But with the Obamacare, that was the one thing that you can get an insurance plan and they can't hold your pre-existing conditions against you, and that really helps people out a lot. So, there's that. But obviously, the Democrats are going to be worse for immigration. The identity politics are terrible. Things like, I think in international affairs, that Kamala Harris would be a nightmare. But they wouldn't, they're not going to be as good for the stock market. They're certainly not going to be good for crypto, and they're not going to be good for, I think, keeping order and keeping security. So it really depends on, again, there's good and bad that both of them have. I do think that this new Presidential Immunity Act by the Supreme Court is a very dangerous precedent, and not just if Trump gets elected, if anybody gets elected, if Harris gets elected too. I mean, it basically absolves a president of any, legal consequences if what they were doing was deemed official presidential business. So, and with the abortion thing, taking such a hardline stance on that, I think that really could come back to bite Trump in the ass. He has moderated his stance, but picking someone like J.D. Vance, I think is kind of a digging your heels into the very far right extreme faction of your base, which I don't think was really the smartest thing to do. I think picking somebody like a Tulsi Gabbard, picking just somebody that's a little bit more moderate, that could be a little bit more appealing to, more of a center, moderate, independent type voter, someone that's undecided would have been a better option. But they decided to dig their heels in, and that's that. But guys, here's the thing. You can very easily become a political junkie, especially this time of year when there's an election. But here's the reality. Unless you have a following on social media like a Patrick Bet-David or a Joe Rogan, somebody like that, your ability to influence people is very minimal, and your ability to influence the politicians is absolutely zero. So in effect, all you have is your vote, which I have my own opinions about voting and the efficacy or the lack thereof when it comes to that. But I just look at it like this, at the end of the day, what you really need to do is, and this is just in life too, is really focus on what you can control. And like I said, both of these political agendas that these parties have, in my opinion, are suboptimal. They're not, neither of them are very good. There's a lot of troubling signs on both sides. Biggest thing is, some of the things in Project 2025 are alarming to me. Wanting to subvert, many independent government institutions to the power of the president would give the president unprecedented power. That, in conjunction with the new President Immunity Act that the Supreme Court passed, I think is very, very, very troubling. But Kamala Harris wanting to ban assault weapons, Kamala Harris wanting to push the DEI, LGBTQ culture, identity politic war, I think is very bad, very divisive. It's going to really cause a lot more division in this country, where that's the last thing we fucking need. And it's going to be a foreign policy absolute fucking nightmare. So at the end of the day, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I am not going to vote. And I'm not going to vote because I think that both options are awful. And me voting would be a acquiescence with a system that I profoundly don't agree with. This binary, Democrat or Republican, and that's the only options we have. I think that's a broken system. And the reason why it's broken is what I'm going to get into right now, which is that at the end of the day, these politicians are beholden to the donors and the money that they get from these donors. They're not beholden to the people. They don't give a goddamn about you or me. They don't care if you're black, white, Hispanic, gay, straight, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Lutheran, Methodist, Hindu. They don't, rich, poor, northerner, southerner, blue collar, white collar, employee, entrepreneur. They don't give a fuck. They care about their own jobs. They care about leveraging their political power to gain as much money that they possibly can, status that they can, and security for their own selves and their own family. It's a big machine, and it's not meant to help the average American. And so now, if I had to vote, gun was put to my head, I would vote for Trump. And the reason is because, like I said, all you can do is worry about what you can control. I do have positions in crypto. I do have positions in the stock market. And I am looking to make some moves in real estate. And I do think that Trump would be better for those sectors in society. So because of the fact that those are things that directly affect me, that's why I would vote for Trump if I was going to vote. And I do think that Trump would be better in foreign policy than the presumptive nominee for the Democrats, which is Kamala Harris. So that's why I would vote for Trump. But guys, here's the reality. None of this really matters, in my opinion, because we have two very dystopic futures that both of these political parties want to take us in, and I don't agree with either of them. And furthermore, nothing is ever going to change in this country if we don't get campaign financing reform. That was passed under Bush, and the Supreme Court argued the case, saying that corporations giving money to politicians is a form of free speech, and therefore is constitutionally, or that is protected by the Constitution, which is a very distorted way to argue that, in my opinion. And look, guys, I mean, now we have, like, now they know that, like, for instance, like Clarence Thomas has accepted luxurious vacations by big time Republican donors. I mean, you know, to think that even the Supreme Court can't be bought and paid for is not far fetched. So until that happens, to me, having these arguments, and you know, it's herd mentality. People always want to, you know, feel a part of something, so they pick a side and they dig their heels in and they go for you know, whatever side they think is best. You know, like I said, I would vote Trump if it really came down to it, but I'm not planning on voting in this election. I just think that it's not Trump that I don't like. It's the certain factions within his base that I think are very troubling, and that is the Christian nationalists. You know, the idea of separation of church and state, and the idea of separation of powers is a brilliant thing, and is one of the most important part of our democracy. And for that to be threatened in any way, I think is just not good. But for both sides, I mean, I don't want Kamala Harris having unprecedented power any more or less than Trump. So that's my opinion. You know, I think the best thing that you can do is figure out what you can do in this political and economic environment, and try to see how what's going on with politics affects the economy and affects certain things in society that you do have control over, like your stocks, crypto, real estate, business, where you want to live, right? You know, you have to ask yourself what your values are, and go for that. But arguing with people, bickering with people, like what we saw happen in 2016 and 2020, where, you know, people were, you know, really were bifurcated into these two camps, you know, the Trump camp and then the Biden camp, or the Trump camp and the Hillary camp. I think is just a big problem, and that's more of it's a divide, conquer, and control strategy that we all know that they love to play that, and you know, people are stupid and they fall for it. So I mean, I've been a business owner under Trump, and I've been a business owner under Biden, and it didn't really affect anything in my business or my revenue stream. I didn't lose money when Biden came into office. I didn't gain a bunch of money because Trump came into office. That may not be the case for some other people, but I'm just giving you my experience. So I think that at the end of the day, you control what you can control. You focus on what's within your realm of control, and politics isn't one of those. So it's good to be informed. I think it's foolish not to be informed, but to spend hours and hours and hours watching whatever political pundit you watch, and then yelling and arguing and debating with someone who's very, very convinced, has very strong conviction in one of these politicians is very, very, very useless and just a big waste of your time. As human beings, we don't like open loop. We don't like ideas or conundrums that are too open. We tend to want a fixed, closed way of looking at things because it simulates a feeling of control, and I believe that's why people believe in God or religion, because it gives them certain answers to questions that they otherwise can't really answer. And that's the same thing here. It's instead of actually realizing that both of these politicians have elements of their platform that are really fucked up and destructive, we don't want to really feel like we have no control. So we say, well, I'm going to vote for Trump, and I'm going to vote for Harris. I'm going to back this up because, at least I feel like I'm a part of something that's going to make things somewhat better in some way. And I don't see it that way. I think that all these politicians are controlled by donors. Until we make a law that says that no corporation is allowed, no super PAC is allowed to donate any money. The only money that politicians can get are from the people, which is who they're supposed to represent. Then we're never gonna fix this system. It's always gonna be broken, and you're always gonna have to pick between the lesser two evils, which should never be the case, because there should be 3, 4, or 5 political parties, and they should all have equal chance to run. And it shouldn't be just based on the fact that only 2 of them have enough money to do so. It should be merit-based, and it should be based on who has the best ideas and what the American people think, vote on who has the best ideas, not, paper. I mean, everything has been, we've been relegated to just having 2 choices about all the important choices in life. How many insurance companies are there? How many big accounting firms are there, right? How many big, in any given town, hospitals are there? Not a lot of options, but, you can go to a fucking grocery store and get, 76 different types of barbecue sauce, or 50 different types of beer, hundreds of different types of cereal or potato chips. So we have endless options for shit that doesn't matter. We have very few options for things that really do matter. And I'm not saying we should have 76 different political parties, but we should have 3, 4, or 5, that have a more diverse opinion about how to run the country. And we don't have that not because it's not a good idea, but because it's not financially feasible based in the current rules of the game. And that's got to change. And until it does, all your political banter back and forth is a big fucking waste of time. So worry about what you can control, and don't fucking fixate on what Chris Matthews says, or what Tucker Carlson says, or what Bill O'Reilly says, or what Joe Scarborough says, or any of these other people in the mainstream media. You're just wasting your time that you could be reallocating towards making your own life better. That's what you should always do. Worry about your health, worry about your fitness, worry about your money, worry about your business, worry about your relationships, and worry about trying to create awesome memories. That's all that matters. Nothing else does. Have a good one. I'm out.